Hi, Chris Carlo, your friendly neighborhood acupuncturist with the Acupuncture and Herbal Medicine Clinic. And I wanted to share with you another natural health tip. I like talking about supporting your health in a natural way. And there are these pillars of health that are really important. Sometimes people are chasing symptoms and they're not addressing the foundation and trying to really get to the root causes of what's going on. So today I want to talk about how having a good, proper hydration plan is very supportive for digestion. Digestion, having a good diet and good digestion is one of those pillars of health. And drinking water is very supportive to that. So think about this. When we eat, we swallow the food, it goes into the stomach. The stomach produces acid. We know, I think everybody's probably experienced heartburn or acid reflux, right? So that's that acid in the stomach. And we tend to think of it as bad when it's coming up because it's not, the whole function of digestion is a downward moving function. Okay, we swallow, it goes down, it gets broken up and digested, and then it's eliminated, right? And anything that's coming upward, like nausea, vomiting, heartburn, even things like constipation or bloating, the digestive process is stuck. Things aren't moving downward. Now, to have optimal digestion, we need to have sufficient production of stomach acid. All right, so the body makes this. It's liquid based, basically water based. Everything in the body is water based. It needs water to make these water based solutions, and the stomach acid is a water based solution. And if you don't have enough water in your system, the body will have a hard time producing sufficient stomach acid to break the food down and move it downward. It may hang around too long. The contents of the stomach is not digesting properly. It hangs around too long. It starts fermenting in your gut, and fermentation can produce gas and such and cause things to move upward. So to have good digestion is to have good sufficient stomach acid levels, and to have good levels of stomach acid produced at the time you're eating is going to require two things about drinking water. The first thing is we need to drink water in between meals, not during our meals. Why? Because when you drink fluids, particularly too much fluids, during mealtime, you're going to dilute the stomach acid that's in your stomach. There's a pH, things are acid or alkaline, and this needs to be very acidic to melt that food down and break it down and unravel the molecular structure of that food so we can absorb it and utilize those micronutrients. And that stomach acid is important. And if we're drinking fluids that are going to dilute that acid, then the acid's not going to be at the proper pH levels to break that food down. So that's the first point. Drinking while eating is not a good idea. Sometimes you eat foods and you feel like you need to drink something to wash it down. Okay, that's just a sign that you're not chewing your food sufficiently. So chew your food until it turns into kind of a liquid substance in your mouth, and it's mixed with your saliva, and that's a good beginning to digestion. Then swallow it. Sometimes people have health issues and dry mouth and they need a little sip of water or something. Okay, right? But don't chug 64-ounce glass of water. I see people walking around with these big giant containers while you're eating. Okay, hydrate. It's better to hydrate in between meals. So in between, maybe an hour before breakfast, an hour after breakfast, an hour before lunch, an hour after lunch, an hour before dinner, an hour after dinner, and any time in between, more so. as opposed to drinking too close to mealtime. What's going to happen is you're going to drink fluids in between meals. That fluid is going to enter your stomach. We're not trying to digest anything at that time. We're trying to absorb water. And what absorbs water in the body is the colon. We know this. If you get a stomach bug, the colon, which is kind of the last organ in the digestive line before exiting, bowel movements and such, right? The colon is where a lot of bacteria is stored, and if we get bugs in our system and it causes us to have diarrhea, the body's trying to wash those bugs out. Of course, that's concerning if you do have that, because you're losing a lot of liquid, and you want to, address that if that's ever an issue. But I want to focus on drinking water in between meals. The colon reabsorbs all that water that you drink. It absorbs it into the body. And then when we are eating food, the body excretes gastric juices into the stomach, a lot of gastric juices, and that flushes through the intestines and in the colon, and the stool doesn't come out. Normally the stool will come out dry, more dry, say, than liquid, because the colon is absorbing all that water that was produced for digestion, all those gastric juices, all that fluid. It's amazing. Within, I think we have like 9 or 10 liters of body fluids in our body. And in the course of one day, all that fluid flushes through our digestive system. Well, not all that fluid, but the same amount flushes through the digestive system like several times. It's amazing when you think about that much liquid is involved with digestion, and it has to be reabsorbed through the colon. Okay, so a lot of information. Hang in there. I want to sum it up. Don't drink with meals, drink in between meals. If you drink with meals, you're going to dilute the acid in the stomach. It's not going to be as effective to digest. If you drink water in between meals, the water's going to be absorbed properly without affecting digestion, because you're not really digesting at that time. That water gets into the body, okay, into the bloodstream, into the organs, and then when it's time to eat, the body will be hydrated sufficiently to make gastric juices to excrete into the stomach and the digestive tract. You see, if you're not hydrated sufficiently, then the body might not produce enough stomach acid. And then you'll have digestive issues. Again, bloating, acid reflux, constipation, gas, feeling gassy, bloated, full. And that all leads to irritation in the gut, irritation or improper digestion. And that's a beginning, that's a pillar of health. And without good digestion, all sorts of other problems start happening. And then you're chasing those problems when you should have been drinking water in between your meals instead of with your meals. That's a piece of the puzzle. There's many other pieces. So stay tuned and we'll talk about some more. If you found this interesting, let me know. Leave some comments. You got questions or you're interested in our services, you can get in touch with us at the Acupuncture and Herbal Medicine Clinic in Coventry, Rhode Island. Until next time, keep on the sunny side.